Supreme Commander is finally here, and the long-awaited real-time strategy game from Chris Taylor is everything that it's supposed to be, mainly big. Supreme Commander is set in the distant future, and it features 3 different factions in it. There's the UEF, which represents law and order, the Aeon, which is an enlightened branch of humanity, and the Cyberns, which is a cybernetic part of humanity. There are 3 campaigns in the game, each that last between 5 or 6 missions each. That doesn't sound like a lot, but consider the fact that this is a huge game, and each mission can take between 2 or 3 hours to complete. In addition to the single-player campaign, Supreme Commander has a fairly robust single-player skirmish mode that lets you fight with up to 7 AI opponents on maps that are as big as 81 by 81 kilometers in size. That's over 6,400 square kilometers total, so that gives you an idea of the largest maps in Supreme Commander. And the entire point of these huge battlefields is strategy. You have such a gigantic battlefield, you can actually do things that real military commanders do. You can reconnaissance the map, you can patrol it, you can find the weak points in enemy defenses and then maneuver your forces around it. You can actually maneuver forces like a general, and that's one of the great things about Supreme Commander that make it so different from a lot of other RTS games. The 3 factions of the game have a very distinct visual style from each other. The UF looks like conventional modern-day forces, the Cybern are very insect-like, and the Aeon are very streamlined and futuristic. But when you get down to it, they're all pretty much the same. It's with the experimental units that the factions really start to differentiate from each other. They all have their basic tanks and they all have their basic planes, but they each have their own special experimental units. These are game breakers. They take forever to build, they're incredibly expensive, but if you can build one and use it effectively, you've won the game. They're awesome to see when you're using them, and they're terrifying to see when they're heading your way. You'll throw everything you'll have against them, and you'll cheer if you manage to kill one. There are basically 2 resources in the game they have to worry about, energy and mass. That seems kind of simple, but when you get down to it, those are the most basic resources you have to worry about. Because it's set so far in the future, they have this replication technology that basically takes mass and energy and turns it into useful things like tanks, and it does so in about 30 seconds. And so you'll build lots of factories, you'll build gigantic armies, you'll build navies, you'll build air forces, and you'll be able to coordinate these things from this great strategic view. So you'll be able to pull the camera back, look out in the entire battlefield, and give all these distinct orders to these units. And it's so easy because the command system is very simple. You can just queue up lots of commands to all the different units and they'll follow them. All this action translates amazingly into the multiplayer realm. The AI in the game is pretty solid and it can be aggressive if you want it to be, but nothing matches up like a real human being. Since you have so much room in Supreme Commander, multiplayer matches are like a gigantic chess game being played over hundreds of square kilometers at fast speed. So everything you do, the enemy can counter. If you're focusing on one area too much, the enemy will hit you in the other. You'll constantly be on your toes in Supreme Commander's rich multiplayer suite. At the highest detail settings, Supreme Commander looks amazing. The downside is that it's going to bring your system to its knees. This might not be evident early on in a battle, but considering that everything in the game is simulated, as soon as you have a battle with hundreds of units in it, the game will start to come to a crawl. On our test machine with a dual-core processor and 2 gigs of RAM, we exhibited much slowdown. Thankfully, you can lower the detail level, the game still looks good, but just be prepared that the PC hasn't been built that can run this game max out on the largest map quite yet. Supreme Commander is an incredibly big game, but it lives up to its ambitions. There's so much strategy and gameplay packed into it that it will keep you enamored for hours, and this is certainly a strategy game to check out if you love RTS in general.